aunt's a very lucky woman, Angelica, because she has 2 lives. She has the life she's leading, also the book she's writing. Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself.
Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself.
Sally, I think I'll buy the flowers myself.
3 different women.
This life, it's what I've always wanted. I had an idea of our happiness.
Each living a lie.
I wish, for your sake, Leonard, I could be happy in this quietness.
Each putting someone else's life
Good morning, Mrs. Dalloway.
first.
That is what we do. That is what people do. They stay alive for each other.
What about your own life? Just wait till I die. Then you'll have to think of yourself.
Mom, what's happening? He gives me that look to say, your life is so trivial.
It only matters if you think it's true.
My life has been stolen from me.
Virginia, you have an obligation to your own sanity.
I am attended by doctors everywhere. I am attended by doctors who inform me of my own interests.
Baking the cake for Daddy to show him that we love him.
Otherwise, he won't know we love him.
That's right.
I don't know what's happening. I seem to be unraveling.
Come to bed, Laura Brown.
I remember one morning getting up at dawn. There was such a sense of possibility. And I remember thinking to myself, this is the beginning of happiness. I have lost those feelings forever.
Mommy, I love you.
Don't worry, honey. Everything's fine. You're my guy.
To look life in the face. To know it for what it is. To love it for what it is. 'Tis the right of every human being.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome back,
oh my
everybody.
gosh. This movie I'm so excited to talk about.
I just have one question for you and all of our listeners. Are you ready to get sad?
Yeah. Are you ready to talk about sad gay people?
Let's get sad. Everybody, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay.
Yes.
Well, we finally got to it. We watched The Hours, directed by
indeed.
the one Mr. Stephen Daldry, released December 25th, 2002, 20 years ago.
Wow.
This is our 20th anniversary of this movie.
Okay.
And our guest today, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the guest remembered to buy the flowers himself. Jackson Cooper.
Jackson, welcome back.
Yay!
We finally got to The Hours.
Wow.
I've been excited to do this movie for a while. And I feel like there's been a few times where we've almost done it, but I've kind of held it. And now this is the time. I mean, it's not the fall. Like, this movie was released during the holiday times, because nothing says going to the movies on Christmas like this movie.
Like drowning yourself in the river.
Like drowning yourself in the river or fucking up a cake.
Okay.
Driving away from your
It's a very great toned movie. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just what I want to watch in the dark months. Yes.
I don't want to know that this movie is 20 years old because when I saw this movie and I was like a grown working adult. I remember thinking about it at my job.
But I was doing research, and this shares the same year as another one of your recent episodes was Chicago.
Yes. And before we jumped on the recording, I had to double check the release date of Chicago to see if it was a Christmas release. It was not. It was released, I think, about a week and a half before.
Right, because I was looking at all the Oscar movies that year, and I was like, "What a fucking murderer's row!" Talk to her.
And most of them were all Weinstein movies produced by Miramax.
Frida, that was the Frida year, But like Spirited Away, About Schmidt, About a Boy, Chicago, Adaptation, Far From Heaven, Ye Too, Mama Tom Beyond, Talk to Her,
all
The
bangers.
Pianist.
Yep.
I mean, just all bangers, all the time.
Wow. I mean, Renee and Nicole were just like on fire.
The blonde bombshells of New Hollywood.
And I mentioned it on our Chicago episode, but I've always kind of thought this would have been a very tight Best Actress year. That I'm sure that, like Denzel said shadily when he announced Nicole Kidman's name by a nose, Nicole Kidman, I would imagine that Nicole probably won by a very slim margin.
I think so, probably because Chicago was so surprising by how good it was.
Universally beloved with people, too.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Like, the thing that all these have in common are they're so... Like they're with mainstream people, but the stories are really offbeat. About Schmidt is very offbeat, and Frida, is like it was a different movie making, but like Chicago too. But they had really solid, powerhouse people in them. So I could imagine it was a tight race too. We should talk about it, but I was actually very surprised this was her Oscar win.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it has like all of the elements, it's got like the makeup work. It's got her being so courageous and looking dowdy, just such courage,
looking
that she's
off
showing.
into the distance and just being sad.
Well, yeah, but
it has the one Oscar scene.
It has the one Oscar, the great scene.
But there is the Oscar scene when I was watching it. I was like, oh, they're going to excerpt this moment where she's, looking right off camera and yelling at you.
and then she gets quiet. But it also has something for the time. Mainstream actresses dabbling in lesbianism, much like Frida.
And mainstream actresses, my big soapbox about the Oscars is an actress has to make herself ugly in order to win an Academy Award.
That's
been something. I mean, that's what won like Grace Kelly her Oscar.
Exactly.
The upset to end all upsets is that Grace Kelly like deglammed to play like a frumpy housewife, right?
Well,
yeah, a school teacher.
Okay.
And put on glasses, looked nothing alike, and then took Judy Garland's well-deserved Oscar and snatched it out of her hand.
Well, and also much like Grace Kelly's win is Nicole Kidman was just coming off of 2 really big years with 2000 and 2001 where she just sort of had this huge career I mean, I wouldn't even say it's a comeback. I guess that Nicole finally just blossomed after divorcing Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
That she was kind of getting these awesome movies. And I guess Grace Kelly at the time would have just been the starlet that Hollywood wanted to invest in. So that's sort of a big narrative in Best Actress is just sort of investing in what's sort of the leading lady that is going to have a very promising future.
Yeah, almost like give it to them to keep them around or give it to them to send them off into the sunset, which I think for Grace, it was a little bit of both. I don't know the chronology of her becoming the Princess of Monaco, but it was around, it was the 50s, so it was around that time. So I think it was kind of this, stay here, stay in Hollywood, you're valid, but also she should have won for Rear Window, but that's okay. We're not fixing the Oscars like some people were.
And before we get sort of too into it, if we're on the subject of Best Actress, I would imagine Meryl was probably 6th place in this race.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that they did campaign her in lead.
So so break it down for listeners who are not aware of the 3. Did they all get nominated, and what were they nominated for?
Well, I mean, they were all nominated.
Okay.
Both Nicole and Julianne got the Hours nominations.
For lead?
They put Nicole in lead, and Virginia Woolf has the least amount of screen time of the 3.
Right.
That's something
And then Julianne was in supporting actress. She got double nominations this year with Far From Heaven. So she showed up
Meryl
twice.
get nominated for anything?
Meryl was nominated in supporting actress for adaptation.
For adaptation.
Yep. I mean, that was probably part of the reason why maybe she
But, I watched
lead.
this movie in 2022, not having seen it probably for 20 years.
Yeah.
And for me, I think Meryl is doing a little bit more of the heavy lifting throughout, right?
She is. And I mean, also like Allison Janney should have gone some kind of nod. Toni Collette should have gone some
Toni
kind
Collette's
of nod.
so good.
Like,
but I
Jeff
also
Daniels.
think
I was like, everyone's just bringing their
even
fucking
the below the line cast
right.
is incredible.
I think Meryl's doing more of the Oscar,
right? But
acting,
can I say that in my opinion, she is doing more of she's more of the lead character. She's our audience. She's the person that we're watching, but also everything that she's doing, while it's great and phenomenal and it's Meryl Streep and all that, I feel like this is something that Meryl could kind of do in like on a break between like really heavy shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like she's not even really like. When I first saw this movie, it really affected me. It blew me away. It stayed with me for days. I just kept thinking about it. But now when I watch it, I was like, wow, this just seems like something that's so easy for Meryl. Like she's just kind of killing it.
Yeah, she is. Everything feels very rehearsed in her role. I'm thinking about, not to jump ahead, I'm thinking about the breakdown scene where she's talking to Jeff Daniels in the kitchen. And it all felt very, theatrical and calculated, and that made me go like, "Oh, this is big Oscar acting," versus some of her other stuff, which is a little more natural. I think even parts of like Devil Wears Prada and such. So,
that's what I was thinking. Exactly that, Devil Wears Prada. In that character is like, it's such a well fleshed out character, and she is doing this performance. But it's like she's like fully just living in now I can't think of the character's name.
In this movie?
Miranda.
Miranda Priestley. She's fully just embodying Miranda Priestley as this like almost a caricature. But as Clarissa, it just feels like, because it's so just like, I'm an everyday woman.
I'm a rich Manhattanite. I have a beautiful kitchen.
And her character is more of the audience way in, and so she's reacting a lot to things.
Yes,
because there's this scene at the end with Julianne where the camera's just cutting back to her, taking it all in.
Clarissa's not having
really
any of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting when they talk about, I think that there was a interview with Meryl Streep where they talk about their character relationships with the book Mrs. Dalloway, and she kind of put it that Clarissa probably read it in college and really didn't understand it, but it's just sort of a book that all of these smart people that surround Clarissa just sort of like think that she embodies Mrs. Dalloway, but the character herself, like, she read it once,
when she was 19
when
or
she
20,
was like in college, and she didn't really think much of it.
And ironically, she's an editor, which didn't click to me until this time around viewing it. And I've tried to watch it every year, but this time around I was like, oh, right, she's an editor. So she probably read it once and then was like, I know people talk about it all the time, like Great Gatsby. So, and then it's all, she never puts the pieces together, which I guess is her plot line, that she is that person. Yeah.
So before we get too into the conversation, I do want to start with, do you remember when you first watched this movie?
Oh.
Because I have a very vivid memory of being dropped off at this movie when I was in high school.
I bought a used copy. So the poster is so good with just the three of them, the big bold type font of ours, and then the curliness of the I know you all have the poster somewhere.
I was going to say, I'll have to tell you, when we were cleaning out our apartment for the move, I found the poster that I picked up from my job at the movie store that I had hanging in my bedroom in high school.
As you do.
Yes, I was the type of teenage boy that had...
He must like women.
That had the poster to the hours.
I bought it. I remember buying DVDs that were not conspicuously homosexual looking, and but I bought that, and we'll get emotional this conversation, but it affected me in a deep way about like queerness and isolation, and it was just so beautiful. But I remember watching it alone one night by myself, and I just couldn't turn it off. And it's weird. It felt like, in a good way, it felt like reading a book. It was this long journey, this epic, like my first viewing, I just remember like all these things are happening. I watch it again. I'm like, this is a really fast film.
Yes.
But in taking it in, it felt like such a journey. But I loved it. I got obsessed with the Philip Glass score. Still am. So, and I like to do it as a litmus test for, boyfriends and stuff. And they're always like, it's very depressing. I'm like, that's the fucking point.
You know that with certain people, if you drop, I'm going to make the crab thing. You'll know what you're talking about.
And I just remember, it was a very well respected movie. Yes. Like my parents had seen it. Like a lot of people had seen it and knew it. But it was never, the word lesbian was never spoken in that. It was always just like, oh yeah, that was a really sad movie about suicide.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah, but there's also lesbians. And it's also about this and also about that. And it was one of the first movies that felt very, without being art house, it felt very literary. Like it felt like there were a lot of themes. There were different things going on all at once. And it was like, it wasn't just about one thing. It was about all these other things. Yeah. But I remember my parents being like, yeah, I remember watching that. That's about suicide, right? I was like, not really. It is, but it isn't. But it's about a lot of the other things. So, but lesbians were never spoken in the breath when asked about, when not just my parents, but other people, they were just like, oh yeah, that's the Nicole Kidman nose job movie. I'm like, yeah.
Everybody had the Toni Collette attitude of just like, what are you talking about? There's no ladies kissing in this movie.
Happening. Yeah. Scott, you were dropped off.
All right. So let me set the scene.
Oh my God.
This was early. I think this would have been like March of 2003, probably right before the Oscars, because I know that I had seen this movie when Nicole won. So I had seen it before. I was with my parents at the Holiday Inn in Great Falls, Montana, for a bow hunting convention that my stepdad does speak at, like outdoorsy stuff, and he does like outdoor bow hunting talks, like and he was doing something at the bow hunting convention at the Holiday Inn in Great Falls. And I'm just like, I'm going to peace out here. You should drop me off at the movie because I really want to see The Hours. It starts at like 1 p.m. And my mom and stepdad dropped me off at the movies. Like, we are dropping off our teenage son at The Hours by himself.
And they had no idea what it was about.
I'm sure that, I think that they probably, I think that they just knew that it was just a really big awards movie at the time, so that's why Scott wanted to see it. But Scott has to see everything, so yeah.
Judging by that trailer, it seems like a real like paranormal. I live every life.
Yeah, we can't with that trailer. It's cut like a psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Your aunt
Mommy,
has 2
are you okay?
lives. Oh my God.
So yeah, and like that was the first time I watched The Hours, and I remember just walking away like really affected by it. And I think that the part that got to me the most, and we'll definitely like unpack that whole subplot of the movie, is I think the character of Richard.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. I think that character probably affected me when I was 17 the most.
Yeah.
Like
a little kid who's dropped off.
Am I seeing myself in like Richie? Am I seeing am I going to become this man when I get older?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was 2002. We still had that hardcore like fear of like AIDS looming over us, like
totally
like that MTV like Sex in the 90s, like you are going to get AIDS and you are going to die alone as a gay man. Like that fear was like drilled into us by MTV, really, everywhere. Like society was just like, this is going to happen. And it was 2002. So we still really had this like this looming over us, and that we didn't have like PrEP or Truvada or any of that stuff. We were just like still in the thick of it, and seeing that character, that noble homosexual dying of AIDS is still kind of like a trope in movies at this time. And I feel like when I kind of got the revelation in the movie of like Ed Harris and like Richie, the little boy, and all that, that just like slapped me across the face.
Slapped me across. That was the moment for me when it does that cut to
him looking at the wedding photo
in the wedding. The wedding veil. I was like, no. And then when Meryl opens the door and it's her, and
there she is.
Oh
my God! And then you just get that. You start putting it all together. She left. She did it. Like she did it, man. She had that baby and pieced out.
Chose life.
She chose
and got the fuck out of the suburbs.
Yeah, I remember that ending really affecting me a lot. Like that final monologue she gives was just like, oh my God,
yeah.
Now, was I the only one of us three that saw this in the movie theater?
Yeah.
Oh
wow,
I did not see it in the theater.
All right.
And where did you see it?
I just rented it.
Okay.
I just rented the DVD and watched it myself alone in my apartment in 2002. And my friends at that was like peak, like Pete and his friends
going out time,
party all the time.
Yeah. You weren't like dragging all of our guy friends.
No,
for the hours.
Yeah, we're going out till in like middle of the week, like Tuesday. Text chain T9 texting on our like Nokia 9600s Tuesday night. Literally just texting tonight ? And then going to work at 7 o'clock the next morning, still drunk.
Yeah.
So I feel like we weren't going to the movies a lot around that time. So a lot of times Scott's like, "Who'd you see this with?" And I'm like, "Myself in my room," because I wasn't going to the movies at this time. But it was such part of like the zeitgeist at the time, especially with the Nicole Kidman nose job and like and it was just that like that Miramax era, and I still was very much a movie person and nerd or whatever. So I did make a point to rent it and to watch it. And the same thing. I was just slapped across the face with the, adult Richie story. She calls him Richard the entire movie. And that little boy has those eyes. That's like, clearly this is, little baby Ed Harris. But, I just remember just being really affected by it, thinking about it at work the next couple days, just like, wow, that movie was intense, was a lot. It's such an interesting thing to think about in like today's movie terms, because we're in such this like, these people can't play these roles kind of an
and
era.
Also major studios usually don't make movies like this anymore. I mean,
I was thinking that too, where I was like, this movie could never ever be made, and even that those subtle hints every once in a while, or like the amount of work, I mean, not in a bad way, but the amount of work that the viewer has to do to layer everything together, where it's just like, I mean, it's just the book, but if you really kind of know the book, you'll know that blah 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 can't be done, I don't think anymore, unless studios like spoon-fed the viewer, by the way, this, Richie has a blue ball, and when we first see Ed Harris, a blue ball is on the, you're like, okay, there's obvious Easter eggs when I watch it again, but in watching this every time I've seen it, it is that thing where it's like, it's not complicated. It's very straightforward. It's very kitchen sink drama. David Hare, who wrote it, is a playwright, so it all makes sense. There's just long scenes of talking for 9 minutes, and I was like, this was a major studio picture. It's crazy.
Made decent money too. It's not like nobody saw this movie. Like it fully made back its budget and went into the black too.
Yeah, and really great. I mean, like, Stephen Daldry's no joke. Like, I think he was coming off of Billy Elliot.
Yeah, he was coming off Billy Elliot.
So, to do a quieter movie like this is a risk, but I don't know. They did a great job. I didn't look up any of the marketing for it, but I guess they just sort of went off the A-list actors that were on it. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
I think the movies where you do have to do work as the viewer, I think those are a lot of times you do remember those a lot more. And maybe that is why this did affect us so much, because we kind of felt like this, ownership of it when we kind of like figured it out, or like, when it was kind of all was revealed at a certain point, we're just like, whoa, those kind of things. It's like we were rewarded for paying attention, and I think maybe those things as viewers, we remember it more, as opposed to the movies where these things are spoon fed to us that we're just like, whatever with, I don't know. It is just so well done, and you don't see movies like this anymore, but.
No, I miss movies like this. It's movies like Meryl in August Osage County, which is based on a play. It's like these movies that are kind of based on theatrical or have that theatrical cadence. It's like I want them to be like that, but then they like movie-ize it, Hollywood-ize it, and it's like quick takes, and everyone's outside in the yard when they're supposed to be in the living room, and you're like, no, let's just have a 2-camera setup, of 2 people talking in a kitchen, and one trying to make crab and break it down. It's that easy. Yeah.
I read I don't know, IMDb trivia or something, where the way it was described of 3 women affected by Mrs. Dalloway, and Virginia Woolf is writing it. Julianne Moore is reading it, and Meryl Streep is living it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's great. And the interesting thing to me is watching it the first time, it's like you can't take it too literally that she's like actually is kind of. I haven't read Mrs. Dalloway, but or
that Nicole Kidman is writing Meryl Streep.
Right. It's not the never-ending story.
Yeah. Well, I've read Mrs. Dalloway. I love the book, and it's a wild like stream of consciousness, book that is just it's one woman's life in a day, but it's just this continuous like train of thought.
Right.
What it is, which is interesting, and I've read The Hours, which is fantastic.
Written by Michael Cunningham, a homosexual.
Yep. Also wrote Home at the End of the World.
Another movie that I used to really love when I was like 19 years old.
I did too. I watched that after this, and I was like, okay, it's pretty good.
Interesting movie that sort of goes into thruples or like polyamory.
early on. Yeah. Okay, so before we get into talking about the movie, I have a quiz.
Yay! Right. So I usually do the quizzes, so I'm excited.
I'm very excited. Now, this is kind of based on IMDb trivia and some other sources, so you probably will get these.
So is it sort of just about its stack cast? Just because, like...
It's the women. I went woman by woman and did, like, 1 or 2 questions for nearly all the women. The ones missing are Alice and Janney. I don't have any on.
Okay.
So,
all right,
so we'll
get
start
to
with Nick. Our gal, Nick.
All right.
Okay. She's been nominated for 4 Academy Awards. What are the 4 Academy Awards she's nominated for? Not one, because she won for The Hours.
I mean, I know this.
Okay.
So her first nomination was for the Moulin Rouge.
That was her first nomination? Oh, okay.
She lost to Halle Berry.
That's the only one I remember.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Lost to Halle Berry. You think that she would have won? I think it's up in the air because I think that Oscar means a lot to history.
All right.
Yeah, I think that for sure, but she should have won.
So, I mean, you said not to count The Hours because her follow-up nomination was for The Hours.
Right.
She was then nominated for Rabbit Hole.
Very good.
Rabbit Hole, a movie that I did see in the theater. A big downer, but I think it's one of Nicole's best performances, in my opinion.
Fantastic.
And then nominated for Lion in Best Supporting Actress.
Very good.
She plays,
Best Supporting Actress.
And then, of course, earlier this year, she was just nominated.
Batman Forever.
for Lucy Ricardo.
Lucy Ricardo. Yes, being the Ricardo.
Or she should have been nominated for Batman Forever and the Grace Kelly movie.
Yes.
Nicole's had a few close calls that I think that she probably got pretty far. I think that she was probably pretty close to getting a double nomination the year that Boy Erased and Destroyer came out, and she missed both of them.
Oh, yeah. I still think Dr. Chase Meridian is an Oscar-winning role.
I mean, it's iconic.
Iconic character name.
Which I have revisited, and she is very wooden in that movie.
Second Bank of Gotham.
It's the script. Blame the script.
Pete's first try next.
All right.
What was Nicole's U.S. debut film?
Her U.S. debut film, because we're not going to count BMX Bandits or that one about like a private school or something. I don't know. Is she in that one?
Flirting
with Tandy Newton. So I'm gonna say Days of Thunder.
Scott.
No.
You want to steal?
Is it Dead Calm?
Dead Calm. Very good. 1989.
Okay. Wow.
U.S. debut. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Eyes Wide Shut faced so much controversy, including the tabloids about Nick and Tom. What is one piece of gossip that circulated during the filming? This is multiple choice. That Nick was not actually Australian, but British, and was using Tom as a means for U.S. citizenship. B, that Kubrick originally cast Melanie Griffith, but Nick and Tom were such an item, the studio made him cast Nicole. C, that Tom and Nick's marriage was a cover-up for Tom's homosexuality. Or D, that Kubrick was actually using Eyes Wide Shut in order to make his Napoleon movie.
C.
I think it's C2. I think it's the gay
Cover
rumors
up.
with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it's the gay thing.
Yeah.
It's the gay thing. It's the Tom Cruise's gay thing.
We know
You know what I was just remembering, and I think that it goes into it on Tom Cruise's wiki, but there was a adult film actor that claimed that he had an affair with Tom Cruise.
No,
like,
really?
I want to say that it's buried in his Wikipedia.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was a thing.
Okay, I can see that. I always think of Eyes Wide Shut as a comedy of. I've told people when I've screened the film, I've always said, watch it as a comedy about Tom Cruise having blue balls and repressing his sexuality, and they're like, it's a totally new movie. It's a totally new movie.
We'll have to get around to doing it for Christmas.
All right.
Yes, Christmas. All right. This is kind of a trick question. What are the two highest rated Nicole Kidman feature films on IMDb?
Paddington 2.
No.
Ooh,
I think she's in Paddington 1.
People love Paddington. Maybe she's not in Paddington 2.
Oh my gosh. I even pulled this for our Nicole Kidman quiz for To Die For.
This is, by the way, this is a trick question. There's technically three, like two real ones and one fake out.
Fake out.
So give the two real ones that she's actually in, and then there's one that she's not, but she's credited in.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is Panic Room one of them?
No.
Oh no, is she the one on the phone?
She's over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not Panic
Okay.
Room.
That's
You
the one
listed.
that-
She's nominated for one of them.
Moulin Rouge.
No.
What?
Moulin Rouge's reception was pretty mixed at the time.
Wow.
I would probably say Rabbit Hole.
No, but drama.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just going right down the Lion.
Lion.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
Wow.
Another one that is has a very controversial director attached to it.
Is it Dogville?
Dogville, yes.
Sure.
So those are the two real ones, but her highest rated, according to IMDb, is American Beauty, which she is credited in a special thank you because she was working on a play.
The Blue Room.
With Sam Mendes at the time, gave him advice about the script, and she has a special thanks, and now that's the highest rated film on her IMDb
That's so interesting.
page.
Wow.
I remember at the time that was like the talk of Broadway because you saw her naked on screen.
Yes.
Or like on stage. Yep.
The Blue Room, I think it was called, something like that. Okay, now we'll move to Meryl.
All right.
According to IMDb, was the lowest rated movie of Meryl Streep's?
Okay.
Think about your least favorite.
Okay, least favorite. I mean,
is Meryl in movie 43?
No. You always
the
go for
movies that made us.
You always go for like
Are they
movie
in
43 whenever you like pull.
I mean,
lowest rated movies of an actress.
Well, I mean, everybody's in it. I'm in it. I've got a cameo.
Do you really?
No.
I'm gonna say, what is that? What is that movie that she did with Tom Cruise about the Iraq War? Lions for Lambs?
No, it's not that.
Is it Rendition?
No.
This is her era post Sophie's Choice when she was doing comedies.
Oh.
I mean, I love She Devil. Did
it's
she?
She Devil.
We love She Devil.
Yeah. She Devil was really poorly rated.
I love it too. I love it too. Like that, defending your life and Death Becomes Her, like all in those few years. Great.
Yeah.
All right, you already answered this. Julianne Moore is one of 12 actresses to receive Academy Award nominations in the same years. What movies were they for?
Far From Heaven,
double
and,
nomination.
The Hours.
The Hours.
Right, that's right. Very good in Far From Heaven.
Yes.
Okay, Claire Danes.
All right.
We love Claire Danes.
All right.
When asked about directing her in Romeo and Juliet, Baz Luhrmann referred to Danes as the blank of her generation, a nod to a future co-star of hers in The Hours.
The Meryl Streep of her generation?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Baz Luhrmann called her the Meryl Streep of her generation. Some beg to differ.
Yeah.
Okay. She once had the opportunity to work with Steven Spielberg after her breakout in My So-Called Life. What was the movie? Bonus points for who the role actually went to.
Okay, Spielberg. So this would have been Spielberg from anything after 94. I mean, Spielberg was up to like making The Lost World in 97. It wouldn't have been that.
I mean, not Jurassic
Park. Or not to give it away, right at 94.
The first Jurassic Park, yeah. No?
Is it the first Jurassic Park?
Schindler's List?
It's a tentpole Hollywood film.
Spielberg directed it?
So it's definitely not. Armistead.
Amistad.
Amistad.
No. She was replaced by
Jaimin Hansu.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right with the historical.
So it's wait, is it Schindler's List? Would she have been in that?
She was up for Schindler's List.
Oh boy.
And it actually went to M. Beth Davids. She was offered it, but they didn't want to give her Polish language tutoring, so she turned it down.
There you go. And so they gave it to Miss Honey.
Miss Honey.
Wait, is that M. Beth Davids as Miss Honey? Yeah.
That's so funny because she's considerably older than her. So is it just somebody in the camp?
It might have been. I assumed it was M. Beth Davids. So, let your listeners. Listeners, please hate tweet at movies that made us gay for the inaccuracies.
And correct us.
All I know is she was offered Schindler's List and turned it down for Polish language. But there's not a lot of female.
And then she went and did the Polish wedding instead. So
yep,
it's you win some, you lose some. That's fine. Toni Collette campaigned for a role in a Tim Burton movie, ultimately not being in it. It was a big Hollywood campaign. What movie was it?
Toni Collette.
Was it The Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland?
No.
It's around that time. You're very close. It's around that time.
I mean, she would have been a really good Mrs. Lovett.
Oh, was it Mrs. Lovett?
It was Mrs. Lovett.
She would have been a good Mrs. Lovett.
She was campaigning to be that, but she lost out to Helena. Yeah. Okay, and last question. Miranda Richardson.
Yay.
Holds a rare category of women who did not receive Oscar nominations for a Golden Globe winning performance.
Okay.
What was her role? And what was the role she did not receive the Oscar for, but she won a Golden Globe for? Or you can list the movie.
I mean, I can
and who was and what? Okay, so answer that first, and then there's a second part.
So I mean, both of Miranda Richardson's Oscar nominations, Enchanting April.
No. She didn't get an Oscar nomination. She won the Globe.
Oh, I thought it was
no, but you're right. It's Enchanted April. She won a Golden Globe, but she did not get an Oscar nom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was nominated for.
Can you name what role her co-star also shares this honor with?
And I mean, is it who else is in Enchanted April?
No, her co-star in The Hours.
Oh, so they won.
They won a Globe.
They won a Globe, but they did not.
But not even
Oscar
got nominated for the Oscar for the same role. Got it.
I mean, I want to say that Meryl Streep won for adaptation that year. No.
And Nick won the Globe for.
Well, I mean,
for Moulin Rouge, but you got the Academy Award nomination.
You're on the right path.
So then this is okay. So this is someone that probably lost the Oscar but won the Globe.
Didn't even get.
She did not even get an Oscar nomination, but she won the Golden Globe
for the same role.
And this for the same role.
Yeah. So that's why it's not Nick.
Don't overthink it. You already said it.
I mean, Meryl.
No,
right?
Nick for To Die For.
Nick,
She won the Oscar. She won the Globe for that and did not even get an Oscar.
And that was the year that Susan Sarandon won for Dead Man Walking.
All right.
So here's the class of women for that. I mean, there's a lot of old Hollywood people Gene Simmons and Guys and Dolls, Marilyn Monroe and Some Like It Hot.
Sure.
No Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
Twiggy and The Boyfriend.
Oh.
Raquel Welch for Three Musketeers.
I mean,
Barbara
also
Streisand, Stars Born, Bernadette Peters, Pennies from Heaven. Kathleen Turner for Romancing the Stone and Prizzi's Honor, both 2 years apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis, True Lies. Madonna for Evita.
Renee Zellweger for Nurse Betty. Yeah.
Sally Hawkins, Happy Go Lucky, and Amy Adams in Big Eyes.
That's right.
So,
wow.
Fascinating.
I mean,
all right, and that's the quiz.
Yay!
Pete, we even pulled a Nicole sound cue, and you didn't use it whenever we got stuff wrong.
Oh, was that that was our Nicole sound cue.
Sorry, we even pulled
That's
it.
okay.
Oh, I didn't know it was for that.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to do it.
You didn't tell me. I didn't bring out the Ouija board.
No.
You found it. You found it.
No, I didn't learn to castrate the bull. That is not true.
Well, that isn't true.
No.
All right. Well, let's.
I'll see if I can cut it in later.
We can cut it in later.
That made it.
What were some of our wrong answers? Was it for Nicole Kidman in Moulin Rouge?
No.
Oh boy.
No, it was. Was it for Claire Danes in The Lost World?
No.
Thank you, Nicole.
It would have
Thank
been
you.
wild if Claire Danes would have ended up in The Lost World. By the way.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's my quiz. I kind of stumped again. How can I make a quiz for people who know everything? So there you go.
I mean, but this movie is even the below the line cast of Jeff Daniels, Miranda Richardson, Allison Janney, Margot Martindale, who plays the
woman in the flower shop.
The Eileen Atkins. I love
Yes.
that. I love that character. I love how shady she
So
is.
good.
And also, she's the cook.
Oh, the woman who's the cook.
The woman who's the cook.
I don't know who that is.
Love that actress too.
Mm-hmm.
All of them so good. Even Ed Harris, who I was thinking back at that time, I was like, I guess he was kind of a star, but not really.
Yeah.
And so for him to do something like this was really, and he was really good. Yeah.
I mean, he would have just been coming off of Pollock too.
Oh, right.
He had a strong,
right before he did Radio with Cuba Gooding.
Oh boy.
Also Oscar nominated for The Truman Show too. Mm-hmm.
Oh, of course, yes, very, very good.
With that,
everyone's good. Jeff
hat.
Daniels too, such a.
Is Jeff Daniels ganging it up for this role though?
A little bit.
The very beginning, he's kind of being a little prissy. I'm like, all right.
I don't like that they're like, oh, he's a gay man and because he's wearing a turtleneck.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh. And he's like, oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
Like he arches his shoulders.
Yes.
He's like, oh, I feel so many feelings today. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
This is our third Jeff Daniels movie this summer.
Yeah, we've.
What were the other two?
Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, in Terms of Endearment.
Terms of Endearment, yeah.
Of Endearment, that's right. He's in Terms of Endearment, yeah.
Yes. Terms of Endearment, we're very torn on if we like him in that movie, because we like him because it's 1982 Jeff Daniels and he's like super cute, but his character is just a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's not a great person. Yeah.
Just leaves the kids. All right, bye guys. Go live with your grandmother forever while I'm still alive and have nothing better to do.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
Well, should we tell the listeners what the movie is about?
Maybe. Well, that's another thing. This movie is on HBO Max, so we were able to just kind of watch it on the Max. We're able to stream it. We do have our Scott's.
I still have my
full
DVD,
screen
my
DVD.
full screen DVD that I bought when I was working at the video store when I was 17 years old.
You stole. Yeah. It's okay.
You can tell it. You can tell everybody now.
It's
The store's
fine.
closed. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of reference for Virginia Woolf. I didn't read Mrs. Dalloway in school ever or out of school. So I just kind of went into it understanding that this is kind of, based on, this book and Virginia. And I had a passing knowledge of her as a writer and a historical figure, and you kind of know that she was, this tragic kind of woman who ultimately did commit suicide.
Suffered from mental illness when probably at a time that stuff like bipolar disorder. You really couldn't diagnose it at the time.
Because that's what's interesting about. Before we got on, I was rewatching the train scene, and I was like, the subtext of the whole movie is that, all the women are lesbians. Yeah. But she, by the way, second lesbian movie you invited me on. I don't know what that says, but okay. But I was like thinking about, if the illness that she is being attended to is lesbianism,
right?
So to speak. We're not saying lesbianism is an illness,
but
if it is as classified by them, like
right.
if it is, or if it is, you're right, something deeper, and it seems like she has some kind of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder of sorts. Yeah. But God, her husband is a dick, like just awful. He's like, get it under control. And she's like, I can't. It's awful.
Just cheer up.
I pay for you to do all this, and I create this for you. And he's like, and you're still taking your little walks. Yeah. Awful. It's awful.
Steve Delaney is really good, though.
He is, yeah. He's very good and very cute. Like,
yes.
I was like,
I love this 30s side part, he
works with his he works with his
little butt boy.
I was gonna say he works with his cute twink assistant in his printing press. Yep.
So
it's like there was that, and then also the twink in the flower shop.
Yes.
Just shady as fuck.
Do you know who that kid is?
We figured it out.
Else he's in?
What else is he in? What was it?
He is in Shakespeare in Love. He's the Juliet.
Oh, that makes sense.
He's the Juliet.
Yep.
So, like you were kind of mentioning, and Virginia Woolf refers to her doctors as, these Victorians, right? These these archaic men. And a lot of it is, we refer to, her illness or whatever, and we say it was probably undiagnosed bipolar, and, she has these this mania, and then she has bouts of melancholy and all of that, but also like you said, there may be some schizophrenia in there, because the way he talks to her, it's like when she's like, oh, I've got to get out of this town that's tearing her apart or whatever in her big train scene, but he's like, no, don't you remember it was London that was like kind of driving you crazy to begin with, and that's why we came here. And he tells her like say it, tell me you remember that, as if like in this manic episode that she's having where she's like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get on the train right now, she just either won't acknowledge it or doesn't remember. But again, can we infer, today that possibly they were treating her for this kind of like, lesbianism or the love that dare not speak its name, and maybe but gave, I don't know what the state of kind of psychoactive medicine in the in the 1930s was. They were just putting her on heavy doses of cocaine and like,
and vibrators to cure hysteria, all that stuff. See, it's interesting because like where I was watching it this time around as a writer myself and as somebody who has clinical depression, like it was interesting to see like where everyone was coming from, where it was like, oh, you're hearing voices and you're doing all this, and it's just her being a writer, right? Like but
the idea is coming to her, but the other people are like these,
where she's like, oh, I have a first sentence, and or she's like, someone has to die, and that like completely rocks his world, which I thought was interesting. But it was just that like the creative spirit. And maybe it was because she's a woman, it's like the creative spirit at that time. They were like, we must tame her. She's crazy. She's this. She's a witch, And
well, also just
sort rolls of, her own cigarettes.
Also, sort of at a time with, I was reading a little bit about Virginia Woolf today that she came from two parents that this was both their second marriage. Their previous spouse had died, and they were considerably older to have children. And she grew up with brothers, but her and her sister, kind of Victorian times, could not really have a formal education, and they all had to be self-taught. And I think that Virginia just really just sort of held that in and just resented, I think, just society at the time, that if I was a man, I would have all of this education handed to me, and since I'm a woman, I have to work for it.
Yeah, and she was so independent as an author. I mean, she wrote so much. I mean, Room of Her Own and Mrs. Dalloway, of course.
To the Lighthouse.
But but you're right. It's interesting. Like they don't reveal what they were treating her for, so we can only infer the worst, but also infer that maybe they shouldn't be treating her, and maybe they should just let her write, which. I got to give it to the husband. Like he kind of lets her do. Like
just go,
it's like, okay, you can do that. But I just am so hung up on why he thinks like a walk is the worst thing in the world. Like because they're like she went for a walk. Didn't you know? And he's like, what?
Well, because she's walking her ass to the train station.
Yeah,
she's walking herself to the train so she can go back to London without him.
Which is fine. But I was like,
that's why he's like, get your ass back in the house because you're not going back to London, fool. Like, where are you gonna live? Like,
he was just there. Yeah, it was just fun to watch and be like, what are they actually diagnosing her with? Because they don't actually say.
Right.
And they don't even say she's crazy. They don't say. Like, none of these women are crazy or weird or special. Right. Like, no one gives that diagnosis. It's just the behavior of everyone else is like, oh, that's weird. And
like, and the help just thinks she's an asshole. The sister just thinks she's sad. Like, the husband is just at his wit's end. Everybody's just kind of like, all right, snap out of it. Like you said.
Miranda
just like
Richardson's like, she's just like, oh yes, your aunt is just weird and goopy, and then she kisses her and she's like, I have to go.
Tell me I'm better than last time. Tell me I'm getting better. She's like, sure.
Great. Okay, awesome, wonderful.
This is way better.
Your nose looks great, Nick. Great job.
I don't understand why the children call their mother by their first name.
I was wondering about that too.
What's going on there? It's weird. Are they Jehovah's Witness? Who knows?
Having this funeral for the bird.
Have the funeral for the fucking bird. Oh my god.
That funeral was weird. I was like, does everyone lay down in the dirt?
I mean, if my nieces and nephews found a dead bird and were actively playing with it with their bare hands, this dead animal,
but also that she takes that opportunity to be like, when somebody dies, it goes over to the other land, and the kid's like, okay, cool, great.
I don't remember where I came from.
There's like some really, that was the thing that surprised me this time around. There are some of these set pieces which I understand. Again, I understand it's a beautiful film. Michael Cunningham, I love you so much if you're listening. But like it's like the bird funeral and like the baking the cake, they're so melodramatically heightened for no reason at all.
It's very heavy-handed.
It's very heavy-handed. Like the baking the cake, she's like, yes, I'm going to bake the cake so that he loves us. Don't you understand?
So,
I messed it up. And you're like, calm the fuck down.
All right, chill out, Laura. So we should probably talk about this half of the movie. So we should, I mean, we had a good conversation about Virginia Woolf. So let's kind of...
I still want to get sad with Virginia Woolf, but you know, we could talk a little bit more about The Help and how much of an asshole she is to the...
Oh, she's awful.
To the maids.
Oh my god. And she's just like, she has that moment she's smoking and she smiles like she's getting a rise out.
Well, that was the other thing. Like, I didn't really remember the details of this movie. I remembered the big things, you know, the revelations and how you feel, and Ed Harris and, you know, old lady Thelma Harper, Julianne Moore and all that. But what I forgot was the nuance, and I forgot how much of an asshole that Virginia could be to people
when she talks
life,
about the train schedules.
You do remember that my sister is coming at 4 with the children?
Yes, ma'am, I hadn't forgotten.
China tea, I think. And ginger.
Ginger, madam.
I'd like to give the children a treat.
We'd have to go to London for ginger, madam. I haven't finished this, and there's the rest of lunch to get ready.
The 12:30 train, Nellie, will get you into London just after 1. If you return on the 2:30, you should be back in Richmond soon after 3. Do I miscalculate?
No.
Well, then is something detaining you, Nellie?
Oh, well, what's her name? What's her name? The
head cook, yeah. And just like, well,
she's
if you leave
she's
now.
like, well, if you leave right now, then you'll catch it just in time, and you'll be back for dinner. Yeah, and she's like smiling. She's doing this like weird twitch. I was like, oh, I mean, it was great acting, but I was like, you're such an asshole.
This poor woman has like chicken livers in her hands.
Yeah.
Nellie's got like her hands full of chicken livers, and she's just like, well, if you need ginger for the tea that bad, I guess I better fucking go.
I hate eating raw ginger.
Oh, I don't like ginger in any capacity.
But raw ginger as a treat.
As a treat.
She was like, let's give the children a treat. They can chew on ginger.
Ginger candy's not my favorite. So so you're right. We'll go timeline wise. So now we're going to the 50s in Los Angeles.
The 50s is 1951 in Los Angeles. So I mean, we are those type of LA residents that when we saw this, when we saw this establishing shot of,
I was like, I don't know where that
LA
is.
from the 50s, I'm
that
like,
ain't nowhere.
That ain't LA.
That ain't nowhere.
That is Florida.
That
was way too flat.
The soundstage of whatever happened to Baby Jane, and you guys are
I mean, it's just a little too flat.
It was way too
you
flat.
Can't really see the mountains in the background. I mean, it definitely looks like around where probably the Golden Girls are.
Yeah.
Miami somewhere. It looks like Miami somewhere. Yeah.
There's that style of mid-century houses, but I think for the 50s there was more like Spanish style and maybe a little bit more like
the
Mildred
carport
Pierce
situation on this
looking.
block. That's not quite how houses were built in LA.
But that's neither here nor there. I do understand
That's
that
just us being nitpicky.
Post-war Los Angeles, there were housing developments like this all over the county. So
The
this could be
Margot
anywhere.
Martinald's hers is kind of Spanish.
Her house is Spanish looking. That corner,
Yeah.
It kind of looks like the chicken house from Mildred Pierce.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
But
great,
so anyway, like I said, it's post-war. It's these new houses in these new neighborhoods with palm trees everywhere and blue skies in sunny Los Angeles. And my grandmother had a house like this, and they're all over the city. Some of them are still there.
Some not so nice neighborhoods.
Some of the neighborhoods are not so nice anymore. But we see Julianne Moore as Laura, the housewife, a few months pregnant. What I really kind of noticed was when Toni Collette does come in. Toni Collette is so much more put together. Like she's got her hair set, and Laura's hair is just kind of like
it's all sad and
down.
flat.
It's flat.
Yeah.
It's down. And in the 50s, women would have had their hair set and done, and it's not done.
Right.
It's just
Right.
And granted, she's pregnant. It's like it's tough being a pregnant lady.
I mean, my observation of her, which this is a testament to Julianne Moore, because I've seen this movie so many times over the years, and it was only this last viewing that I saw the nuances where I was like, oh, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I was like, oh, she's dumb. Like she doesn't know a lot, and she's very like, oh, I'm going to pick up on, like, you're excited, I'm excited.
Right,
She,
right.
like,
Just have a lot of life skills, interpersonal.
Yeah. And I was piecing it together with when John C. Reilly was trying to tell, Richie about how they met and all this stuff. And there was just something really interesting about how she made this character be this very simple, like housewife who was like, I just know how to do this, and I don't know how to talk outside of, X, Y, and Z. And if I mess something up, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like when it would cut, like there was one shot where it was on Toni Collette and it cut to her, and her hair and Julianne's hair was like messed up a little bit. and she looked so dour and like sunken. And I was like, oh my God. Like it's so funny how, that kind of contrast.
And just like it's just they're really playing up the isolation of like being a housewife at this time and not having really a life of your own outside of the house and all that. And I mean, I guess Far From Heaven really
a little bit,
kind of
except
focuses
she,
But that has the whole
different take.
That
on
has the whole Douglas
on that
Sirk
story,
element too.
And
also,
she plows her gardener.
Yes.
Dennis
Haysbert.
And also just sort of the theme of being a mother, and when being a mother doesn't quite come so easily to certain women. And I think that it's like we live in a society where women are put in this position of you have to be a great mother. Like being a mother has to come absolute like natural to you.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, like you failed.
Yeah, and it
I think she really plays up this idea of like that I'm sure a lot of women have. It's like I have a kid and now there's this kid that lives in my house.
That's what I was stuttering about. I was like, and then there's the thing of like, and then one day you are like, I don't want this kid.
Yeah, and you're just like, hey, what's up, kid? You're awake now, so I guess we should hang out because you don't go to school yet. So, what do you want to do?
And they do allude to the fact, or in Toni and hers conversation, that like it's post-war, obviously, and like they're like, oh, we're isn't it so great that they came back from the war and they had this and we gave them all this, and they're like, yeah, that's wonderful that we did that for them. So there's a lot of that service to the man, and the child is that. So it makes sense when she leaves, like that being an act of heroic courage, is she's just like, no, I'm doing something for me. When then, like, in reality, it's like leaving your child is the worst thing in the world. Especially, but at that time for her, she's like, what else could I have done?
It was either between leaving my child or killing myself. The character, the character of Kitty is really interesting because Kitty, on the surface, has it all. Like, she's sort of the ideal housewife, and when she sits down with Laura, she comes apart. Of that, this is all just sort of, she's having trouble getting pregnant. She's going to see a doctor.
Well, no, and Laura even says about the husband. She's like, well, where's he been? I haven't seen him lately. And she's just like, oh, he's around.
It's that repression. Like, everything's fine, everything's okay, but I look great. Toni Collette plays her so well because it is so, like, everything is surface, and there's so much. Like, what I love about her is with Julianne Moore, there's so much sadness underneath her surface, but with Toni, there's just so much, like, denial underneath it, and it's everything is a denial and a deflection. And it's not self-serving. Like, she's never, like, I don't get the sense that she was, high school prom queen or anything like that. She was like, this was what I was told to do. This was what I was meant to do. And then when she's faced with, like, death, imminent possible death, she just throws it away. Whereas Julianne Moore is empathetic to it. So.
You're lucky, Laura. I don't think you can call yourself a woman until you're a mother. Or the joke is, all my life I could do everything. I mean, I could do anything, really. Except the one thing I wanted. Yes. That's all. Well, at least now they'll be able to deal with it. That's right. That's what they're doing. That's right. I'm not worried. What would be the point of worrying? No, it's not in your hands. That's it. It's in the hands of some physician I've never even met. Some surgeon who probably drinks more martinis than Ray and... Oh, Kitty. I mean, of course, I'm worried about Ray. Come here. I'm doing fine. Really. I know you are. I'm more worried about Ray. If anything is not good with this stuff.
This is why people our grandparents' age usually had a lot of issues.
I was going to say, then there's the generation thing of, like, oh, right, we all know those people.
Not really wanting to admit when something's not fine, of
or we're just not going to talk about it.
We're not going to talk about it,
Because I love that moment where she's like, and here's the key, and that's all I need.
Yeah, just got to feed the cat.
And she's like about to leave, and then they kiss, and it's very telling, and we know those people of that generation, like parents and grandparents and things like that. Where it's just like, no, everything's fine, I'll be okay. That post-war mentality, everything's gonna be okay. But Julianne, I mean, I'm consistently confused. I think she's the least clear character in the film.
Sure, I think she's probably meant to be the most difficult character of the three, too.
Yeah, and even in reading the book, I'm trying to piece together you're right, the housewife and everything that's affecting her, but at the same time, I'm also going, I don't understand what motivates her, like how a lot of her identity is connected, you know what I mean? Because it's like there's obviously a need to be free and to be away from everyone and be herself.
Mm-hmm.
But the lesbianism, I'm not saying that should be forefront, but it's very forefront kind of with Virginia and Meryl's character, that there's something else happening. And then for Julianne, it's kind of second banana to just her isolation. Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, we know where Laura Brown is in 1951, but we don't really know what Laura's life was when she left and she went to be the librarian.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even with Clarissa, when she talks about her whole backstory with Richard, that they were 19 and dating when they met, and then he ended up with the Jeff Daniels character, but they just still kept up as friends. Like, you really see an entire history of a character, and with Laura's, it's just a little gray because you really don't know. I mean, I guess that it's like Richie's relationship with her, of that even Richard doesn't really know
where their relationship ends. That's all that we as the audience.
I mean, maybe they've had contact, but it's probably very minimal, of like a letter here and there, a phone call, but that's pretty much it.
Well, and a lot of resentment because remember Claire Danes calls her the monster.
That's the monster. Yeah,
the monster at the end, and you're right. It's interesting. Here's something I never got was who was Claire Danes' father?
Sperm bank.
Oh, didn't she say she never met him?
That's what I thought, but
I think Clarissa at one point says I never met him.
I think it's like a sperm bank thing.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So it's a frozen pop.
Oh, it's a frozen pop. Okay, cool. Okay. They're doing the hip 2000s thing of swirling some. Yeah. Okay. Great. Cool.
Because
because this time around I was like, wait, and I was trying.
Is it Jeff Daniels? Yeah.
Well, I was trying to do the timelines with Jeff. I was like, is it Ed Harris or Jeff Daniels? And then they, what?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And like, I'm assuming that the Claire Danes character probably would have been born around like 1981 because she's in college, and 2002. Yeah,
it's supposed to be 2001. Remember
2001?
the
2001.
And so then now we'll go into the 2001 segments. And P brought up a good point of that. It's a very post 9/11 thing of when you see a super of New York City 2001. It's the first thing that you go to.
It's the first thing that you think of, but I think I don't know why they specifically were like, this is a year ago, pre 9/11, don't worry about it. It didn't even happen yet. So these people can still be pissed off about the crab thing getting thrown away and not like have existential dread about,
throwing out
World War III.
I think it's because I don't remember the novel specifically, but I think it's like supposed to be set in present day.
Right. Sure. Right.
So it's like whatever that is. But you're right. Yeah. What's this pre 9/11?
Yeah. Yeah. They're just like,
I can walk down the flower shop.
Yeah.
Like, the subway. Okay.
I can have like 9, round tables in my Manhattan apartment.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that too, because they show the design.
I think I counted. That was in the apartment.
It was in the apartment. I was like, the apartment's not that big. What apartment are you throwing this fucking party in? Because it's not the one you're in.
No.
Because when she's with Julianne, I'm like, that's like 2 tables.
It's like 2 tables.
And the sketch was like 6. And she, by the way, she was also like, no one can. No one decided to come to the party. I'm like, how many people did you invite? That's not a big apartment.
With like 6 those tables can seat like 8 to 10 per table. So she had Allison Janney and Claire Danes on their cell phones, like calling everybody, don't come, don't ask what happened to Richard, but
don't mention it. We'll fill you in later
tomorrow. Just don't worry about it.
Also, Clarissa's kitchen I think even for rich New Yorkers,
this is a big ass kitchen.
Is a big ass kitchen for like somebody wealthy in New York.
The stainless steel hood over the range. I mean, get out.
I was also like, for an editor, you do a lot of cooking.
Yes,
like
when you can clearly have it catered. You can afford to.
Yeah. That was the other thing. I was like, she was cooking, but then she was also catering
Yeah.
because all the food was cooked by the time Richard died, which was the same day.
She got live crabs too, so she still has to like knock those crabs and like I've cleaned a crab before. You have to knock them in the stomach and pull.
It's
their
not
arms
like
off.
lobster. Crab is different.
No.
Yeah, it's harder.
So it's like they have I mean, even if this whole Richard thing wouldn't have happened, they still have a lot of fucking work to do. And then you have to go to Richard's apartment.
She's going back and forth. She made 2 trips to Richard's apartment that day.
Yes,
I hope it's not that far.
And she had time to get like barrels of cream cheese inspired bruschetta, like to dump out into a giant. Also, I was like, when did all this food get delivered?
But then Claire Danes mentions to old lady Julianne Moore that they just put the food away, and so there's plenty in the fridge. So I'm thinking whatever was super perishable they threw out.
Yeah, Alison Janney does have this giant, abnormally sized Tupperware container.
Yeah.
When Meryl Streep dumps the
so they were
cream cheese
keeping
inspired.
some things, but other things. The crab was not gonna keep.
No, that's
not keeping overnight. So, oh my goodness.
I think
that's also one of my favorite. Like, the entire opening sequence is brilliant.
When they're setting up all of the. I mean, I've quite literally been in film classes before where they've taught this. I think it's like formalism in film, like the opposite of realism, of like every shot is like it means something, of just how all this is cut together. When you see John C. Reilly picks up the flowers and sets them down, and when he sets them down, it cuts to somebody picking up. It cuts
to like Nellie
picking up the flowers in one of the other timelines. It's just like, I mean, shots like that are so fucking satisfying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that whole entire thing, and also the music where, it's like you hear a descending piano thing, and then there's the subway shot, and it cuts to Meryl's timeline, and the music it's all brilliant. It's all just so good. And the end where they're all like looking up and they all have a thought. It's great. It's really just brilliant. Yeah.
So one thing that I noticed as I'm watching this movie yesterday that I'm thinking, this is such and forgive me, but this is a white people problems movie. If my mother's gay best friend who's dying of AIDS and she's throwing a party in our house and all this stuff is happening, and I walk into the house from college, start removing my clothes, bags, coats, and just throw them on the floor, and just in a pile.
Your mom's like slapping
and just
you
walk
across
away.
the head.
She's just like, "Are you gonna just leave that shit on the pile of your coats and
me right
bags
now?
on the floor in a pile in the entryway in the hallway?" Because the maid is off today, so somebody's gonna pick them up, and it's not gonna be me. I'm just like, Clarissa, tell your daughter to pick up after herself.
Yeah. Also, Claire Danes play. By the way, when I first saw this movie, no joke, I was young, gay, and dumb. Still am, and I was like, I didn't know who Alison Janney was,
right?
Because until she kissed her, of course. But I was just like, she wasn't the roommate, she wasn't into this, she wasn't that. But when Claire Danes comes in, I'm like, oh, she's having an extramarital affair. And it's a younger woman. Because Claire Danes plays her like
a little
this
mature,
butch ass, like fucking lesbian.
And I think that's the character in the book, right?
And I was like, and even this last day when I was watching it, I was like, she is playing it like this, like, I'm a punk rock bitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, that comes off as lesbian, Claire.
Sure.
I'm sorry
and I
to
think
say
that. I think the
yeah.
character in the book is a lesbian too.
Oh, okay.
Runs in the family.
So like mother, like daughter. And I want to say that Clarissa doesn't like the girl that she's dating, I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I may be making that up. I don't know. I read that. I read that today off like Wiki or something.
That girl probably was Parker Posey, and then it got cut.
All right.
Yeah. Can we talk about Alison Janney? And Can we talk about the kisses? The three major kisses.
Yeah.
Oh
Please
my God,
do.
so good.
So we get, the first kiss in the first timeline with Virginia kissing her sister.
And her sister.
Which is a very intense kiss.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it jarred me when I saw it. I was like, oh my God, Jesus.
And that's kind of when you as the viewer is like, okay, so Virginia really isn't well.
She is a little.
She is trying to kiss her sister. Yep.
And she's doing it with the passion of a lover.
Yeah.
She's just like, oh my God. It is so uncomfortable that we're all Miranda Richardson in that moment where she's like, what the fuck is going on?
We're going to miss our train.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. She's like, children, we gotta go.
We get the second kiss with Kitty and Laura.
Yeah.
Yes. A beautiful
comforting
kiss. Very beautiful.
comforting Kitty, and it just sort of turns into a very intimate moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw that and I misremembered that kiss because I remember when I was young, gay, and dumb growing up, I remember watching that and being like, oh, it's intentional. Or I remember it being slower, like more intimate. And then I was like, oh no, it's quick and this sort of impulsive, comforting kiss.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, like that's really beautiful. And then I remembered like Julianne is like, you know, in her afterglow, and Tony is too. And then Tony like snaps back up to it, and it's like, okay, I gotta go. Goodbye. Everything's good.
You're sweet.
Yeah.
You're sweet. Yeah.
And then she does her denial. Like, what do you mean? Like, everything's fine. Everything's good. Yeah.
And then, Clarissa's probably more or less in a domestic partnership with the Allison Janney character.
That's an intense kiss.
You get that nice moment on the bed.
Yeah. You also get that nice moment in bed with Claire Danes where they're laying on each other. I thought that was really sweet. That's when I was like, oh, she's, you know, like, Allison Janney's not home. You guys are fooling around.
I want to see that movie.
I never thought. I
never thought of that. That's funny.
I don't know where my mind was.
No, but it makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is just a tale of three lesbians. Well, 5, 6. Tale of many lesbians throughout time. But you know, this relationship that Clarissa has with Richard.
Yeah.
You know, this party that she's throwing and this storyline that kind of is mirroring Mrs. Dalloway somewhat, and that she's going to get the flowers herself, and she's ultimately, it's her day planning this party.
Having to dodge questions or remarks that people have of, well, I tried to read Richard's book. And everyone just sort of gives her a look like Barbara in the Flower Shop or Lewis of, I tried to read it, and girl, I couldn't make it through it.
You know, it's funny. I read something back when I first saw this movie that was supposed to be like an inside joke about Mrs. Dalloway.
Oh, got it.
When you read Mrs. Dalloway, it is very hard to read because it's like stream of consciousness. It's like almost nearly one sentence, basically. But it's very hard to read and to get the things out of it that when you watch, there was a Vanessa Redgrave movie of Mrs. Dalloway. Like when you watch that and then you read it, it's very different.
Sure.
But it's hard to read.
Yeah.
So I always thought about that as like the joke is that
a meta kind of.
He's like, I finally wrote a book and it's about my life, and this is supposed to be this person. Which Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway, it was supposed to be that. She mirrored her real people and affairs on the people in Mrs. Dalloway.
Right.
So I always found that as like an inside joke where they're like, I tried to read it and it was really, really difficult.
And it's just kind of like and also probably an inside joke for authors of a whole chapter on if she should buy some nail polish, and it turns out she doesn't.
Yeah. Which is how Mrs. Dalloway goes. It's like she spends a whole chapter figuring out, you know, what flowers to buy kind of thing. Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And I thought it was also extra kind of shady in these people telling Clarissa, like, oh, I tried to read it and it was, whatever. And the general consensus is that it's like the main character is kind of based on her.
Yeah.
So to tell somebody that like, oh, this book that someone wrote about you, that
what does she say? She's like, it's you, isn't it? It's about you.
I love. Right? I mean, I live for Barbara Shade in the flower shop. I love that character.
Good. That's such a good scene. Yeah. She's like, it's you, isn't it? Yes. You're like, well, it's inspired by me, and yeah.
I feel
and I love that they only mention Clarissa, but they never mention Julianne Moore's character, Laura.
Yeah.
And until Claire Danes says, oh, that's the monster, and then you put two and two together that, oh, maybe that's in the novel.
Right.
And the character read it, too. Laura said that she read the book.
Oh, yeah. She said she
read it. That's right, yeah. And she said, yeah, some of it's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Meryl's performance is like extra Meryl in this, though. Like those inflections, I was like, I think I'll buy the flowers myself.
I mean, you also get Meryl running around Manhattan with like a long coat, a necklace,
a chunky necklace,
like the reading glasses too. So it's like it's the ultimate.
And she
Meryl
does
character.
the puckered lips thing where she's like listening to you, and she's like, well, that's what we do.
Yeah,
keep each other alive.
Yes,
but I had in my notes the scene where she's like, I'm unraveling. She's like breaking down in the kitchen to Jeff Daniels. I said, Meryl Oscar moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's that moment she's like,
bad
as
hostess.
we were saying earlier, it's all curated. It's for her.
Yeah.
Like,
Also, like, and it's just such like a little touch of Meryl's just acting of when she turns on the sink and it sprays in her face, and it just turns into a little beat of the character. Like maybe that was just something that they didn't think would happen on film, is that like when you turn the faucet, the pressure is gonna like shoot up, and then it just sort of works into the beat of the character crying.
Well,
She improvised.
Where I want my Steel Magnolia fans to come out of the woodwork here. This is the Sally Field school of like egg breaking and like food work, food space work.
Actor
as you're like having
Yep.
like an intense scene. I'm just gonna crack some eggs and I'm just gonna crack the shit out of these eggs into this pan, and whatever I'm just making a pound cake. I don't know, because there's a lot of eggs.
See, I went
the
to
yolk.
another
Yep.
Claire Danes film, The Family Stone, and that cooking scene.
There
but
you
sure.
go. Yeah,
Steel
yeah.
Magnolias too. Yes, yeah.
Sally Field cracks about a dozen eggs in this jar.
She does. She is. Yeah, you're right. It is the most Meryl Oscar like heightened, like almost kabuki kind of Oscar performance for her. And Julianne Moore, I gotta say, y'all, like I'm gonna go on record. Julianne Moore, God bless her. Like she is a better actress every movie I watch her.
Yeah.
Because, like,
so good.
Watching her in this, like, she was good in Far From Heaven, but that's a very heightened,
it's kind of
Douglas
very
Sirk.
stylized that they're going for something here. They're
But for
recreating
this,
these old movies.
she's so contained and so good.
The scene with her
and it's
crying in the
this
bathroom.
and Magnolia and other movie and Boogie Nights, like I'm just like, God, she was so rocking it in the early 2000s. She was so good. Yeah.
And the three of them, and even Toni Collette, like still working, still knocking it
So
out.
good. Claire Danes still working.
Yeah.
Like Allison Janney winning an Oscar. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And it kind of figures that the time that the opportune time that Allison Janney got that nomination, she won like everything. So yeah, like the moment that she was like eligible to be like to win, people like jumped at it because it's Allison Janney. Like everyone loves her.
And I think it was a long deserved Oscar. Like I think people felt pretty guilty about not giving her an Oscar before. Yeah.
I mean, the Oscar campaign for this movie, like we said, there is what she's uglying herself up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
You know, there's the de-glam is what I was trying to go for. There's the de-glam in this movie.
When you look at the production of the movie, this is a co-finance between Paramount, who I think was sort of the main distributor, and Miramax, which Scott Rudin and Harvey Weinstein, like two big characters in Hollywood that never ended up working with each other again. Just because I think they went back and forth with so much stuff in this movie that Scott Rudin at the end of it was just like, I don't ever want to work with him again.
Yeah, and to hear, I heard an interview with Stephen Daldry a year ago talking about this, where he was just like, it was, you know, he was given a lot of freedom, but he knew that behind the scenes there was a lot going on.
Well, and I know that
because he was like, I had a great time in The Hours. Like, it was fantastic. It was a great opportunity to get back to his theater roots,
right?
And to work with like David Hare, who had done a lot of theater at that time. So, but he was like, I know behind the scenes there was a lot of, back and forth with producers. It's interesting now to look at like Scott Rudin and Harvey Weinstein.
I was going to say, Scott Rudin, also someone that's sort of been kicked out of Hollywood from, not.
And let's not forget the year of the Hours Oscars, the best director, Roman Polanski.
Roman Polanski, who couldn't even show up to accept it. Yep. And I know that I know that Scott Rudin, while not quite as problematic as Harvey Weinstein, Scott Rudin still has a reputation of when you work at Rudin Productions, like you probably will have a phone thrown at you.
But Rudin at this time with Billy Elliot and all these other films, it was quality movies. And I gotta admit, like, even the Scott Rudin movies I've watched recently, I'm like, they're pretty damn good.
I know that he worked with the Coen brothers pretty much exclusively in the 2000s, and I know that he had a reputation of that when he worked with directors like Stephen Daldry or the Coen brothers, he always went to bat for him with like the from anyone that worked at the network or anyone that worked for the studio. I'm not a Scott Rudin defendee. However,
the stories I've heard of him was that he would go to bat for independent cinema and like really went hard on good quality independent movie makers who and like worked with almost in a way forced the studios to market them to a success, which was to the benefit of the filmmaker. So, can't fault him for that, especially a movie like this that is, you're right, can't get ever made today and is very theatrical. I mean, it's very much like, it is there are long scenes of just dialogue and two people talking, and it's like that's basically the whole movie.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, it's just 10-minute scenes of dialogue. Yeah.
It's very Harvey, but I read that he was like against the prosthetics. No nose on Nicole. That just seems very like Harvey. Just like, why are we using Nicole if we're going to cover up that face?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. But it just became this, it was in Arrested Development. Like, the actual, like,
it's also in
the actual nose.
It's also
piece.
in an episode of, it's also an episode of Kath and Kim.
It is in an episode of Kath and Kim. Oh my God.
These are for you. Thanks. They're quite nice. So what are you doing?
I'm writing. I've written heaps in my Total Girl Fitness story.
Right. So, you still going to do your running then?
No. The doctor said I can't. I'm so bored. I'm dying in this townhouse.
Are you going to come to see the Hours tonight then?
Nah, I can't go out with this nose. Besides, too much excitement might tip me over the edge.
Right. Okay, well, I'll leave you to it then, Kimmy. Okay, toodaloo. Bye.
She went extra Australian for her Nicole impression.
I haven't heard that.
Dying in this townhouse.
Oh my god.
Do you watch any of Kath and Kim?
Only a little, but I've never
so
heard
good.
of that. No,
So
I've never heard of that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just became a subject of parody, and you know, it was a whole subplot in Arrested Development using the actual nose prosthetic, as if there's only one, like in Mrs. Doubtfire, like there's one piece. You know, but and it's another thing that, you know, like we said, Nicole is in this movie. Of the three of them, she's in this movie
the least. Yep.
You know, but they push her for Best Actress.
I think it makes sense that she was pushed for Best Actress because the movie does revolve around her.
This is true. This is true.
And I think it is the transformation. I mean, it. I mean, we can say it's the nose, but I think it's all
voice.
of her. I'll never forget watching it on TV, and my mom was watching it, and we watched like the first 20 minutes. Of course, 20 minutes, Virginia Woolf's in it.
Yeah.
And she goes, "When's Nicole Kidman coming?"
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh no, that's Nicole Kidman." And she was like, "Oh, okay." But I think it's that. I think it's the transformation of, you know, into ugly-ing a beautiful actress. Although even if it was Nicole, kind of like the Lucy thing, like when she was in Lucy, it was like, you can still tell it was Nicole Kidman. It's like, it's still fine. Like, it still would have been fine. Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, this would have been at a time before Nicole would go on to just really have this reputation of transforming for roles. I mean, when you look at stuff like, I mean, what are the big, like, Nicole Kidman transformation movies? I mean, even, like, the weird indie movies that she did, like the Diane Arbus movie, of just these, like, really weird transformation movies that just sort of flew under the radar that no one remembers but me.
Is that when she played, like, an undercover cop or something?
Destroyer. I love Destroyer. Where she plays
But that was
cop.
a transformation.
Yep.
She talked about, she was like, "I lost this many pounds to play this role." Yeah. And I cut my hair, and I remember that.
She got shorter wigs. But so it was an interesting thing in that there's these three main characters, all powerhouse actresses, and
only one scene with two of them in together.
Yeah.
And it's just
That's right.
the Meryl and Julianne scene.
And only Meryl's listening in that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't even really say anything. And then there's the whole like story of that they originally cast an older actress.
I didn't hear about this.
They cast an older actress, shot it all, and then the director was like, "This is it's just not working for me. I don't like it." And then and I think they shot it in chronological order. So they shot all the Virginia Woolf scenes, all the Julianne, and then Meryl, and it just wasn't working. So then they were like, "Let's bring back Julianne, put her in old lady drag, and see if it works." And then by that time, Julianne had gotten pregnant in real life.
Yeah.
And so she was wearing a fake belly in her scenes. And then now in these scenes, she actually is pregnant. And
they have to put her in like a big coat.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So they had to reshoot everything. So maybe, they only really shot her sides.
Maybe even like the shots with Meryl.
That's what I'm saying. They're the original shots.
They weren't even like in the same scene together. I mean, you definitely see Julianne and Claire together.
Well, and she's I was gonna say she's only standing up in the bedroom.
Yeah.
When she walks in, but then everything else she's sitting down.
Yeah.
So they're doing an I Love Lucy bed.
Yeah.
See, another connection.
There you go.
Who do you think? Who do you think would have been older Laura? Would have been like Maureen Stapleton?
Oh my God.
I could see Maureen Stapleton
It probably
being
was
older
Meryl,
Laura.
and then they just cut it. So
Meryl in a dual role.
Much like Angels in America.
Or it might have been Robin Williams as Mrs. Doubtfire.
There you go. I think they could have done A League of Their Own and gotten an old lady, but used Julianne's voice.
Julianne's voice. Yeah. Those scenes in A League of Their Own still
it probably was Maureen Stapleton. Yeah.
But why would they not want her?
Was Lauren Bacall alive at the time?
Oh my God, I think she was still alive.
I chose live. I chose live. Yeah.
I chose High Point Coffee.
I chose High Point decaffeinated coffee. I chose Fancy Feast. Your cat will love it, and so will your pussy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, I miss celebrity endorsements for like everyday products.
Oh, it's
why
great.
can't we have that anymore?
Yeah. Now it's either like in like bank commercials, insurance, crypto,
diamonds, or crypto.
Right, diamonds are crypto. All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
It's
Let's
not
bring
like-
back Lauren Bacall to endorse cryptocurrency. Yeah.
I mean, they just might.
Post-stroke Betty Davis. You know, like we could.
I
yeah,
mean,
we have a whole
they
different-
got like Fred Astaire the dance with the vacuum cleaner in that '90s commercial. They can do it for Betty or Lauren.
Oh man, I do want to see the outtakes of Meryl playing old Laura against Meryl though. That would be
against herself.
Yeah.
Which is actually just Claire Danes, because Claire Danes is like, I was told I was the Meryl
young
Streep
Meryl.
of my generation, so I'll be the stand-in for Meryl. And then it just becomes a weird set.
Oh man. Oh Baz, we loved Elvis.
Yeah, we did. I liked Elvis.
Still haven't seen it. Still, I need to watch it. Need to go see it.
I feel like, I mean, we have talked about Ed Harris.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean,
yeah.
even though, I mean, when you look back on it now, and I know that we have like over 20 years of, I don't really think that you can do a character like this in a movie now that we've maybe have moved on from
the noble AIDS patient.
Tragic AIDS patient. But I do think his scenes are really, really good though.
I think he's fine. He doesn't outwardly state. Well, no, he does in one part, but it's not his personality.
Yeah.
Like there's a real bitterness that's connected to his life and his career, and not his sexuality.
Right.
Which I think he does very well, and I think the writing does very well too, where he's just upset about how life has dealt him the wrong cards, and he's very upset at just being, where his life has ended. And then when you put two and two together with his mom and everything, you're like, oh, I get it even more. But he's not like, I'm a homosexual and I don't want to be. Which the first time I was watching this, when I saw that, it was like he was dying of AIDS, I was like expecting this shame associated with his gayness, but there was not that. And I thought that was a really powerful thing. So yeah, not too dated, but yeah, dated in the sense that it's like, yeah, Hollywood has to have a gay tragic character who's dying of AIDS. So yeah, who ultimately kills himself. God, the worst. The worst.
Woo. Throw themselves out of the window.
Right in front of her.
Right in front of her.
That's a hard scene to watch. Yeah.
And those scenes are rough too, because he's telling her just like, when I'm gone, like you got to get your shit together because you have a life.
Stop worrying about me.
This and this apartment, this is not a life. And when she says stuff like, oh, there's good times to be had, there's like plenty of years left, and he's just like, what? Like of this, like years of this, like what the hell? Like figure your
part of
shit
me
out.
though, I don't know if it's the script or the story, like if it's actually in the novel, but it's like part of me made me go, he was putting too much on her.
Yeah.
In a sense, because I was like, how much of that was actually real? Because she does come in, like one of the first things she says to him was like, have you heard the voices again? And he's like, no, I haven't. They haven't, they haven't shown up or anything. And so when he's like really guilt tripping her, and it just made me go like, how much of that was deserved versus what just him being him? Yeah.
Yeah, and is it like is that like some schizophrenia? Is it mental illness?
Exactly. Yeah. Was
Something
that an after effect of
of his illness.
AIDS and because your mind does deteriorate when that happens, and so I was like, how much of that was sincere and how much of it was just him, as an after effect
Now,
of the disease.
How familiar are you with Mrs. Dalloway, the book?
Pretty familiar.
Who kills themselves in the book?
Who is he in the book?
Who kills themselves in the book?
Oh gosh,
she says the artist.
It's the poet. Yeah,
the poet.
Who's her friend?
Okay.
Who's supposed to come to the party, and then he doesn't. Yeah. That's from what I remember.
And Little Richie is the poet of the hours.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Because it didn't occur to me until watching it. I was like, she was an editor, and I didn't know he was a poet. I thought he was just a writer.
Right.
And then I was like, oh no, he's winning a poetry prize because there's a shot because she had been talking about the prize, and then there's a shot of her in the apartment with this big poster of like a poetry prize. So I was like, oh, he is the poet. Yeah. Okay. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, Ed Harris, I thought did a great performance.
Yeah, it's really good.
And fucking-tastic acting in that. Yeah.
You know what I always remember about Ed Harris is that I am, and don't ask me why, don't test me on this, but I'm a big fan of The Abyss.
Yeah, you
love The Abyss.
And let me tell you why. There is a fist fight between Ed Harris and Michael Biehn, and this is like 1990, top of their physical peak. Ed Harris and Michael Biehn,
late 80s,
and they're having a fist fight, and it's in like water, and they're all wet. And Michael Biehn is super cute, super hot, great looking. Ed Harris, all wet. He is built like a brick shithouse.
He is.
His ass will not quit.
I was going to say, don't we see his ass in The Abyss?
You don't see his full buns, but you see him wet a lot.
He's pretty like almost naked in that. Yes.
Yeah. And he's got a body.
You're in Abyss lovers company. Okay. I love The Abyss. I love the director's cut of The Abyss.
Yeah, I love it.
All good. It's all good.
Yes.
It's all good. James Cameron, good for you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a feat of filmking, I'm telling you. Do not sleep on The Abyss. Yeah. All right. I think we are getting time to wrap this one up.
I'm glad we did this. This honestly was
did.
very cathartic to talk about this movie because I think it's such an important movie for gay people, and I don't think we get to talk about it enough. Yeah.
Oh, do young gay people care about The Hours anymore? Probably not.
Should.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe this will bring it back into their on their radar.
I feel like I haven't really read a lot about the 20-year anniversary for The Hours. I don't know.
I don't think anyone's written about it.
Yeah. Maybe it's
I think we're going to start a trend.
I
think we will.
Maybe it's just a weird we don't like to talk about old Miramax movies anymore. Maybe it's that. I don't know.
I think it might be too mainstream.
Sure.
For some people.
Yeah.
It might be too mainstream where they're like, there's too many A-list actors and it's queer, so cancel it.
Right.
It's not good. It's not this. Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say we should start doing midnight screenings of it and throw crabs at the screen. And
you can we're gonna have a drag queen get up and lip sync along Meryl's breakdown where she has the breakdown by the stove.
I want to do callbacks of I'm attended by doctors. Day and night.
You gotta do the big Nicole Oscar speech. You just have to have a drag queen throw out a cake.
I was gonna say I can do a drag performance and eat an entire single layered chocolate cake.
Yeah,
with blue frosting.
She doesn't eat the cake. I noticed that. The other day.
The good cake. She doesn't eat the good cake. Yeah.
She doesn't even eat the good cake. She's just there. So yes, I'm glad we did this. This was really fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you both. And I hope everyone tells their gay young people to watch The Hours.
Yes, elder gays out there, it's your responsibility. Spread the word about The Hours.
Spread the word about sad gay cinema.
Let's get sad, everybody. Thank you, Jackson, for coming on again.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh, this is so good.
Fun.
One more time, can we hear Nicole say no?
No.
I had to search Graham Norton YouTube
I'm
for
sorry,
that.
I'm sorry I sent you.
No,
on
I got
that
it,
blog.
but I think that you said press for Paddington, and that's how I found it.
Was that it? Oh, great.
Yep.
I was great. Okay.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
great. This is why I'm single, because I know these things. Okay. Thank you both. Thank
Love
you.
it.
All right.
Oh man! Until next time, we'll see you very
Until
very
next time.
soon.
See you later.
All right, bye, buddy. And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much. What a fun episode.
Fun episode. Sad movie, but fun episode. So we didn't get too sad.
No, not of course. Or of course not.
But yeah, definitely very fun. We love when Jackson comes on the show. Great times. But for now,
Is it time for Patreon
It's time for
shout-outs?
Patreon shout-outs.
Let's hear 'em.
No.
Actually, it is. We love to say hello to some new patrons. Millie.
Oh, Millie.
We love it. Thank you for
love Millie.
being a patron, Millie. And Darcy, Ted, Benny, Jermel, Melanie, Christopher, Susan, JJ, Shelby, Michael, Charlie, Muffy, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Joshua, Emily, Melly, Aaron, Melinda, and Jim, Jessica, Nick, and Shannon, Christine, and Fino.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being patrons.
If you are a patron, you will get the monthly newsletter, which we have to be. We will have a newsletter coming out around the time this comes out.
Yeah, sure.
We'll have a new
We'll have
one.
a new
But you'll get
newsletter.
access to all of the commentaries. If you are a $10 a month level, you can watch a movie with us.
Yeah, that's our. You
Put
get
it
a
on,
bonus episode every week.
Hit
It's a
play.
commentary
You'll
track.
hear Pete and I talking, or you can just listen to it in the car.
Yeah, you
can
can
just listen to it by yourself.
Sync it up to the movie. We give you instructions on how to sync it up to the movie if you have it on DVD or if it's streaming. But if not, just listen to it as a bonus episode, and they play just fine. They're actually it's really fun when it syncs up to the movie. I love doing it.
Yeah,
It's a
we
great
last did
time.
Catwoman.
Yes,
we'll be
indeed.
having a new one soon.
Yeah, the Catwoman commentary is very fun. So check out all of our Patreon additional
And
supplemental.
when episodes
content.
are done in advance, I have been putting them up a week early on Patreon. So
yeah, so Patreon listeners,
we've been very good
Week ahead
at
of
being
time.
ahead of the curve when it comes to our schedule. So I do put them up early, and I put them up for any level.
yes, indeed, even the dollar level of donation. So head over to Patreon for that. We'd also love it if you would subscribe, rate,
Yeah,
review,
give us 5 stars.
Give us
We
5
would
stars.
love to hear your kind words and maybe read them on the show.
Yeah, you can give 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts as well as on Spotify. You can also write a review on Apple Podcasts, and I think you can write a review on Spotify now too. So we have to check that out. So if you drop us any new reviews, we'll read them on the show. Apple Podcast reviews are always fun. We love reading them. We love reading them on the show. Great news. We love it. It's free for you, and it helps us out. So head on over to those platforms and do that.
Yeah.
And while you're at it, you can follow us on social media. We are on pretty much everything. On Instagram and Facebook, we're at Movies That Made Us Gay.
And on Twitter at MTMUG Pod.
Yes, indeed. And if you want to follow us on our personal accounts, you can do that as well. I am Pete. I am at Peter Lasagna on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Oscar Scott on Twitter. I never have been plugging my Twitter, but I've said it in like the past 2 episodes in a row. But I'm that on Twitter, and then Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and follow my letterbox.
Yes, indeed.
Do you know that I've logged like 9 Nicole Kidman movies this year?
Work.
Yeah. She's my most watched actor.
Well, I think Nicole Kidman is your most favorite actor.
I think so.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. So, until next week, everybody, thank you so much, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
No.